Brigadier Army. Breathing, arms. Order, arms. Halt. Forward, march.
Please be seated. Well, good afternoon. I'm Michael Reynolds. I'm the Regional Director for the National Park Service here in the Midwest region. Thank you very much for coming to a very, very special day. This is a day that we commemorate something that happens very rarely, a national monument in the 401st addition to the National Park Service, Charles Young Home and his story. Before I introduce our first speaker, I would like to just thank our hosts here at the National Afro-American Museum this morning or this afternoon for this event and for allowing us to be here on this chilly day, as our partners here also at Central State University. Our first speaker today to begin the program, I believe probably needs very little introduction, but Secretary Ken Salazar, the 50th Secretary of the U.S. Department of the Interior, hails from Colorado. Born to ranching and farming families in the beautiful San Luis Valley, he has brought to the department and particularly to our agency a unique leadership that has expanded our system to help tell the untold and the important stories of America, as well as preserve its vast and beautiful landscapes. It is my honor this morning to introduce our Secretary, Ken Salazar.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's a great and glorious day here as we celebrate Colonel Young and the Buffalo Soldiers as the 401st unit of the National Park System, is it not? At the outset, let me say that President Barack Obama could not be more prouder of the United States of America and this day as we gather here to celebrate the story of America and the story of one person who was courageous to bring about change for a better world. We celebrate the ethic that drives us to create a much more perfect union and a better humanity for the entire world. Now, we wouldn't be here today if it hadn't also been for the great support of many people. So besides your leadership here, we've had great endorsements for this effort from one of the most outstanding senators that I have worked with in my lifetime, and that's Senator Sherrod Brown. Let's give him a round of applause. To show you how history and jobs and tourism are a bipartisan effort, it was Senator Rob Portman who came to me when I was a U.S. Senator from Colorado and said that we should move forward with a centennial bill to celebrate the centennial of the National Park System. So let's give it up to Senator Rob Portman, who is very supportive of this effort as well. Representative Mike Turner, thank you so much for being here, and let me just, a few other people, I'm probably going to leave some people out, but to Marcia Bayless, the Mayor of Xenia, Marcia, if you will stand, thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. To Dr. Elam, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, you are a connection to the Young family, and without you, we would not have the home that now President Obama has made a national monument. Let's give them a round of applause. The Trust for Public Lands helps us in all 50 states on so many projects all around this country and indeed internationally. And today we're represented by the Ohio Director, Pamela Carson, who basically helped us put this deal together. Give the Trust for Public Lands a round of applause. Neil Mulholland, the Executive Director of the National Parks Foundation. Neil, stand so people can see. You got to get to know this man because we still got a lot more work to get out of him. And some time ago, there was a person who came into the world of the National Park Service as a young ranger, now some 50 years ago, when under Secretary Udall and President Kennedy, those were his roots, and became the director of the National Park Service and now a senior counselor to the Secretary of the Interior, Bob Stanton. I know I have missed some others, so will all the elected officials who are here, senators, representatives, mayors, please stand, who I didn't mention. Thank you, Senator, thank you. And finally, we do celebrate here today a person who was a great leader and who helped change in so many ways, not only the trajectory of civil rights for our country, but also the military. And so I see some of our soldiers from the United States Army. If you will stand, let us recognize you. They're in the back. Please stand. Please stand. Please stand, all of you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. So let me at the outset just say this has been a great capstone journey for me. As the last 5 or so days I have traveled around the country celebrating a decision which the President of the United States made and which he effectuated in the signing ceremony in the Oval Office just Monday of last week. And in that ceremony in the Oval Office with Director Jarvis, Neil Mulholland, Bob Stanton, and many others, what we did is we celebrated the President's action to have us move our public lands legacy and our National Park Service into the 21st century. For me as Secretary of Interior, it was a great time to be there and a great effort that we've had going on around the country. Because when I started out with President Obama, he and I were in the U.S. Senate together some 8 years ago. He from Illinois, I from Colorado. I was number 100 in the U.S. Senate, and he was 99. And now he's President of the United States, and I've been 8th in succession to the President for the last 8 years, and it was an honor just to be there with him in the Oval Office as one of the final things that I will do in my first term as Secretary of Interior. And so as I've gone around the country to celebrate those decisions, I have seen the icons of America in a very front row seat. I have watched Vice President Biden and Director Jarvis, as on Tuesday of last week we inaugurated First State Delaware National Monument. So the state of Delaware now, as we get ready to celebrate the centennial of national parks in 2016, will now have a national park, which means that we are a union because all 50 states have a unit of the national park. That's something worth clapping for, even though it's all the way in Delaware. And it became the 400th national park. Now, on either side of the Delaware First State Park, we have number 399 now, which is in Maryland. Another great project put together with nonprofits and with the state of Maryland that will forever celebrate the person that was known as Moses, a woman who was a fighter in the Civil War, who led slaves out of slavery. So we celebrate Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad in Maryland. And now, here in the great state of Ohio, what we do is we celebrate Colonel Young and the Buffalo Soldiers, a person who was strong and courageous, and as his family told us earlier today, always knew that persistence and perseverance was the young way to go. And that persistence of his has given us the civil rights legacy in so many ways that we continue to celebrate today. So let's give it up to Colonel Young and the Buffalo Soldiers. And will the Young family members who are here please stand up? Members of the Young family, they were with us at the house. There you are. Let's give them a round of applause. So you see, they're forever young. And I was told there's some 50 of them around the country, all very successful. And so we look forward to continuing to work with all of you as we tell the story of your courageous ancestor and somebody who has not only led your family, but also led so much in the United States of America. So let me step back and kind of give a sense of, and I know we have other speakers, so I will try not to be too long, but some people will ask the question, well, why? Why is it that you are creating these national parks and doing these monuments around the country? And my answer is a very simple one. We need to continue to build on what Colonel Young stood for, and Harriet Tubman, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and so many others in this country that have really seen the possibility of humanity in a march towards a more perfect union, where we all see ourselves as part of God's creation and all part of God's children. And we don't do a very good job at that when, in fact, we say that there are parts of our community that we ought not to celebrate or ought not to be included in the national story of these United States. We are the most celebrated democracy in the history of humankind, and yet the fact is that our national parks, as America's best idea, according to Dayton Duncan and Ken Burns, and it is a wonderful democratic idea, still needs some more perfection for us to get to where we want to go. And part of that is what Director Jarvis and Neil Mulholland continue to lead today as we move forward to the centennial celebration of the National Park Service. And that is that we are a National Park Service where telling the story of America, where we are the custodians of America's history and heritage, needs to tell the history and heritage of all people, no matter who you are, black, white, black, brown, women, men, that story is all part of the fabric of who we are. And nobody's history is better than anybody else's history. No one's heritage is inferior to anybody else's heritage. It's all a heritage that needs to be told so that we can celebrate all of us as one people. And so that is why when Director Jarvis and I took on this mantle for President Obama, now more than 4 years ago, we decided that this was something that we would do for the United States as we started getting ourselves ready to celebrate the centennial of the national parks. And so yes, I'm proud that as we move forward to create this story of a more inclusive America, that the President of the United States has signed off on giving 6 diamonds to this story of America, which I am very proud to have had the honor of executing with the wonderful men and women of the National Park Service over the last 4 years. And they include Port Chicago in San Francisco, which became a national park that tells the story of the struggle and discrimination in World War II, where I toured the site and we made it into a national park. It included the efforts that we had in 2009 and 2010 at Ebenezer in Atlanta, Georgia, where in the same pulpit where Dr. King and Dr. Daddy King and all of his family helped lead the civil rights movement of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and even before that, where we have invested significant dollars so we can tell that story there in Atlanta, Georgia. And it included in Washington, D.C., now between the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial, there is now a statue on the front yard of America in the National Mall that honors the contributions and the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's impressive. But we knew that there was more to do, and Sean Jarvis would not be denied saying that we were going to do more. And so he came to me and he said, there's a place that we need to preserve because it tells such an important story of America. It's a place called Fort Monroe. It's a place that marks the beginning and end of slavery because it was a place that the first slaves were brought here by the Dutch back in the 1600s. It's a place where the first African-American was born in what is now North America in the United States. It also, later on in the Civil War, became the crucible for Abraham Lincoln's thinking as he constructed the Emancipation Proclamation. So Fort Monroe is known as the birth and also the end of slavery, known as Freedom Fortress during the Civil War. So Fort Monroe became our 397th unit of the National Park. That is something that we need to remember, something we need to applaud the people of the National Park Service for getting done. So let's give it up for them. But we needed to create a few more diamonds along the way. The President very much wanted us to continue to tell this story, and so we did it, as I've said, with Harriet Tubman, and now here with Colonel Young and the Buffalo Soldiers in Maryland and in Ohio. And it is part of the tapestry of telling America's story. Yes, it's important, and we are celebrating the sesquicentennial of the Civil War. But it's important for us as we tell that story of the Civil War across the United States of America that we also tell the story of civil rights and the march that still continues today as we move forward towards a more perfect union. Let me also say that this is not just an initiative that celebrates great contributions of African Americans to our country and to our world. We also are doing it in other venues. We're doing it with women, with Asian Americans, Native Americans, Latino Americans, and indeed we can't ever forget the fact that we are all one people. And so yes, white male Americans are also included in the great work that we do to celebrate the heritage and history of our country. And that's all because we view ourselves really as one community, one nation of a very diverse group of people that really came together to create the strongest and longest lasting democracy in the world. Now, as we celebrate these stories, and as we're here in Wilberforce, Ohio today, it's also important that there is an economic reality that comes with the work that we do. We know that this is going to be an economic engine for Ohio. We know that jobs are going to be created here, not only at the monument itself, but through the hundreds of thousands of people who will come and visit this national monument. When you enter the global network of the National Park Service, it means that when people come here to the United States from all over the country, they'll want to learn the story of Colonel Young and the Underground Railroad. And so we'll see jobs created here, which are so important to the senator and the representative, to the mayor here. We'll see jobs coming here to these communities. Our own estimates, our National Park Service alone has about 280 million visitors a year to our national parks. Outdoor recreation and tourism generate outdoor recreation alone at about 6 million jobs a year here in the United States of America. The President's travel and tourism strategy, which I co-chaired over the last several years, has as a goal for the President that we make the United States of America the top travel and tourism destination in the world. And we believe that based on what the economists all tell us, that we can create another 2.1 to 3.3 million jobs in the United States just through additional tourism. So we will make sure that this is one of the economic pillars of America that is so addressed by these national parks and these units that we create. In so many places around the country, whether it's in Montana or Maine, Florida and the Everglades, Texas and the Colonial Missions and the San Antonio Riverwalk, wherever you have a national park unit, it creates a major economic inducement for job creation in those communities. So for all of you who have struggled in the economic crisis of Ohio and the country over the last 4 years, this is part of rebuilding the economic foundation for the future of the United States. I said earlier at Colonel Young's home that we have come a long ways. I remember as a U.S. Senator in 2008 when the whole economy started to go into a financial collapse. I remember the votes on TARP and so many other issues that we were dealing with back then. I remember coming in with the President early on in the Oval Office in 2009 and knowing that we were losing about 650,000 jobs a year. Many of you are here today because you are historians of our country. And so what we were facing then was the reality that we might be looking at the breadlines and unemployment rates that would be equal to that of what we had seen in the Great Depression. And yet we're back. We're back here in Ohio. Our economy is doing better. We have created jobs now for more than 38 months in a row, 5 million jobs in the United States. Manufacturing is coming back. People and companies from around the world are looking at the United States as a place where they want to locate their factories. And so we're coming back. But as we come back from that very difficult economic crisis that we found ourselves in 2009, one of the things that we have told with this story on the President's signing of these proclamations is that tourism and conservation are part of that economic future for the United States of America. So that's what we celebrate today. Today we celebrate conservation and job creation through conservation and preservation, but we also celebrate a very important part of who we are as a nation as we tell America's story. So let me finally conclude by making one final comment, because this will be my last speech as United States Secretary of Interior, where I have had the honor of serving the people of this country for the last 4 years and 3 months. Next week, I am very hopeful that my successor, a great person by the name of Sally Jewell, will be confirmed by the United States Senate. And we're grateful that both senators from Ohio, Senator Rob Portman and Senator Sherrod Brown, are supporting her in that confirmation effort. She will be a great Secretary of Interior. But I look back at my own life and think about how it is that this country has given me so much. I think about Colonel Young and the struggles that he went through, or Harriet Tubman, the struggles that she went through, or someone like Cesar Chavez, who opened up many opportunities for people like me and my family. And I know that many of you who are here, in fact all of us here, are the beneficiaries of the great work that went on before us. I think back to my own parents. My parents were proud soldiers and servants of World War II. My mother came from a place that had no name in northern New Mexico and traveled across the country on a train to Washington, D.C. to work there for 5 years and to help open up the War Department in that great cause of struggle and freedom for the United States of America. My father, too, went to Washington, D.C., and then, following the bombing at Pearl Harbor, joined the United States Army, and when he passed away in 2001, he he had told us all that he wanted to be buried in his uniform from World War II, and we complied with his wishes. Now, they had, in their own sense, a strong foundation of where we had come from, because my family had been in New Mexico and Colorado even before the United States was the United States. We helped settle the city of Santa Fe, New Mexico back in 1598, almost 400 years ago, before Plymouth Rock. And somehow, as they stayed in northern New Mexico and in southern Colorado, my parents also knew that notwithstanding the struggles that they went through in the Great Depression, that in this country, we were on a march where there was better opportunity ahead for our children and for our grandchildren. My parents never had an opportunity to graduate from college. We didn't have telephone or electricity where I grew up on that ranch in the San Luis Valley. And yet, in my own lifetime, I have had the honor of being Attorney General, United States Senator, and Secretary of Interior. But my parents' proudest legacies, and my mother is going to turn 91 this month, really wasn't so much about the achievements that we had in public service. Yes, they were proud, but they were most proud of the fact that all 8 of their children had been given this opportunity by these United States of America to receive a college degree, because all 8 of us became first-generation college graduates. For that, my parents were proud. For that kind of determination as well, somebody like Colonel Young and Harriet Tubman would be proud of all of us, because what it shows is that no matter who you are, no matter where you are from, no matter what your gender is, no matter what the color of your skin, here in the United States of America, we are one people. We are one people. And that really is a message here as we celebrate the opening of the 401st unit of the National Park System, as we honor Colonel Young and the Buffalo Soldiers for their great contributions. Thank you all very much. We have a lot of people who will be speaking here, but I want to just say the person that I'm introducing now is a person who started out in the National Park Service at the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. a long time ago. And so when President Obama and I were trying to figure out who's the best leader to take us forward into the celebration of the centennial of national parks, we looked around the country. And we found a regional director from the Pacific Northwest who had spent his lifetime advocating and celebrating and being the very best person within the National Park Service. So the director of the National Park Service, my friend and your director, Director John Jarvis.
Well, thank you, Secretary. I think you can see why we have, in the National Park Service, have really enjoyed the support and working with Salazar. He is going to be missed in a very big way. Not casting any aspersions on the next person, but Ken Salazar has been fantastic. And, you know, the designation of these new national monuments just would not have happened if we had not had this support from Secretary Salazar. It was Salazar, because of his personal relationship with the president, was able to go to him and bring him these ideas, including Charles Young, to use the president's power under the Antiquities Act to establish these, and this in particular, this national monument. And it's just, so I want to say, on behalf of the National Park Service, the 25,000 employees that are the stewards of the most important and most historical places in this country, that we want to welcome Charles Young Buffalo Soldiers National Monument to the family. So the signing, as the Secretary said last week, by the President in the Oval Office, we crossed the 400 mark for units of the National Park System, achieving 401, and we eliminated the jeopardy question about which state does not have a national park. This new national monument really joins 400 other national parks that really preserve our nation's most scenic places and our most important historical resources. These are the places that tell the American experience, which in particular the chapters in our history that help us understand the sacrifices and the trials and tribulations that really shaped this nation, the real aspirational goals of our country and our society. And certainly the story of Charles Young is a remarkable one. As the third African-American to graduate from the United States Military Academy, Charles Young overcame, frankly, stifling inequality, not only at West Point, but throughout his long and distinguished career as a soldier and a diplomat. And he persevered, which we understand is a trait of the Young family. He persevered through, really recurring acts of racism throughout his tenure to really become the highest ranking African-American soldier in the U.S. Army at the time. Anytime we add a new unit to the National Park System is a very special day for us. But in this one, it's particularly unique because Charles Young was one of us. He was a park ranger. He was the first superintendent, the acting superintendent of Sequoia National Park. So when he was stationed at the Presidio in California, which is also a unit of the National Park System today, one of the jobs he had with his soldiers was to protect the national parks. And so they would gather up and ride across the Central Valley to the Sierras in the summers and protect Sequoia National Park from poachers and from those that might be stealing those giant trees. And that was in 1903. And most of you that don't know that the U.S. Army was the original protectors of our national parks, and you need to look no further than this uniform to see that we are very proud of our military roots, and we are particularly proud of Colonel Young, who was the acting superintendent at Sequoia National Park, where he demonstrated again extraordinary leadership in really doing the kind of original roots. I understand that he had a fence built around one of the giant sequoias to protect it from the visitors. And if that's not a park ranger thing, I'm not sure what is. So it's really exciting for us to finally honor someone that served so early in the National Park Service's history as well. This could not have occurred without the dedication of a lot of people. I mean, from the concept that we wanted to expand the National Park System by including the Charles Young and the Buffalo Soldier story, it just would not have occurred without a lot of people. And we'll thank some today. There are others in this audience. I know that you put your shoulder behind this as well. It would not have happened without the community support as well. It's very, very important that we build the community support, and it was absolutely there as well. I want to point out a few folks: Mike Reynolds, the regional director here in the Midwest, and Sandra Washington. Where are you, Sandra? You're out there somewhere. Right there, Sandra Washington, the associate director, regional director, very, very involved in bringing this together. Molly Ross, who's standing over there and has served as an assistant to me in really building the background in these proclamations, which is incredibly important to build a legal basis for the president to take action as well. The Friendship Foundation of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity really have been the stewards of this story and this place and this home from the very beginning. And if they had not stepped up and really taken this on and shouldered this responsibility, the house probably would not be there, nor would the story. And they generously made the home available to us so that the story of Colonel Young could really be expanded to all of this country and beyond, and visitors around the world. So really thank you to the fraternity. You have trusted us, the National Park Service, with this story, and I just want to commit to you that we are honored and that we will never, ever betray that trust that you've put into us. TPL, we turn so many times to the Trust for Public Land to move quickly. We move really slowly in the National Park Service because we're part of the government and we move slowly. We need NGOs like TPL to step in when there is an opportunity, and they really stepped up in a great way to help us acquire this property and then to provide the technical assistance in the real estate transaction and to provide support to the fraternity as well. And again, thank you so much. And then our partners in the African-American Experience Fund, which is a component of the National Park Foundation, who really stepped up to underwrite this acquisition and provide the purchase price, and then turned around and donated it to the National Park Service so that the monument could be established, was also absolutely essential. And I'll be introducing Neil here in a second. So we are really absolutely thrilled to add this addition to the National Park Service. It's the 8th unit here in the state of Ohio, and we are incredibly proud to be taking on the story of Colonel Charles Young and the Buffalo Soldiers. And I can promise you, the National Park Service is here every day, will be here every year into the future to watch over this place, to watch over this story and to protect it and to tell it and pass on that story to future generations of Americans. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Neil Mulholland, who is the President, CEO of the National Park Foundation, who is our official philanthropic partner of the National Park Service. Neil and his team have been not only essential in the establishment of this great new national park, but they are our partner as we work towards our centennial in 2016. So Neil Mulholland.
Well, good afternoon. As John said, the National Park Foundation, we're the national charitable partner of the National Park Service. In addition to John's leadership, our chairman is the Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar. And while this is a very exciting day as we're bringing Charles Young into the system, it's also a bittersweet day as this is one of the Secretary's last public events. So he's so good at acknowledging everybody, we'd be remiss if we didn't give a warm, really hearty round of applause for everything you've done in the past 4 years leading the Department of Interior Sector Development. As Director Jarvis said, through our African-American Experience Fund, the National Park Foundation is very proud to have facilitated the acquisition, along with TPL, of Colonel Charles Young's home. And it's really important because this acquisition was done entirely with private funding, and then enabled us with that private funding to make the donation to the National Park Service so the President can make it a unit of the National Park Service. And now, in being within the service, the story of Charles Young can be accurate. His story can be accurately told forever through the mission of the National Park Service. Now, today marks the beginning of our public-private partnership as we look forward to working with the surrounding community and the state of Ohio to build upon private sector support and to aid in the preservation and support of the Young home and the personal history of Charles Young. Very soon, the Young home down the road, that quiet homestead, will be the source of education and leadership development inspired by Colonel Young, and an ongoing source of economic vitality fostered by all those who will come to learn and commemorate the lasting legacy of Colonel Young. The African-American Experience Fund and the National Park Foundation look forward to becoming a partner of the surrounding community and the great state of Ohio. We're thrilled to be here today. And with that, I'd like to introduce Pamela Carson, one of our partners with the Trust for Public Land. Thank you.
I could not be more proud or more honored to be associated with my colleagues of Trust for Public Land, in case you wondered what the TPL stood for. It's Trust for Public Land. And we were invited by the National Park Service to bring our national expertise in helping to create heritage sites, important heritage sites, such as Colonel Young, to be preserved forever. And so what we brought together was our technical expertise, our speed, and our passion toward really preserving to help secure sites for all times. We were born in 1972, and we have experience with this kind of things. A couple that come to mind today are Sweet Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, which is the home to Martin Luther King Jr.'s home site. The African Meeting House in the heart of Boston, as well as Murphy Farm, which is also known as John Brown's Fort. So success stories like this really happen because of partnerships and because of collaboration. And it's through the work of all the folks up here, many in the audience, and others across the country that make these things happen. And most notably for us, we'd love to thank the partners that really made it happen for us, the Department of Interior, of course, National Park Service, Omega Phi Psi, and Friendship Foundation, as well as the National Park Foundation. We also thank Ken Salazar for his incredible leadership, especially with America's Great Outdoors. And finally, Colonel Young lived as a hero and he died as a hero. We're just very grateful to be able to play a part in preserving that legacy for all of us to enjoy for generations to come. Thank you. Now, I get to introduce someone who's the heart and soul of Omega Phi Psi, our own Dr. James Elam. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Salazar, distinguished guests, and members of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I am a 62-year-plus member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and I am button-popping chest proud to be one. On such short notice, we were unable to gather Omega members in this area. We have hundreds. So I would like the members that were present to please stand. I arrived here in 1952, I believe it was, 51. And I never registered at Central State University. I was in Wilberforce, and I decided to switch and came over here. Nobody knew me. They didn't know where I came from. I had no records, no money, no nothing. But there was a man in the bursar's office named Harry Johns. Stand up, Harry Johns. He said, "We'll take a chance on you." And they permitted me to enter Central State University, where I received one good education. And I would like for our new wonderful president, Dr. Cynthia Hammond, to please stand. Back in the early 80s, the Colonel Young home went up for sale. There was a sign out front, a realtor sign, and one of our members saw the sign. And he got all the brothers in this chapter. I'm a member of the Wilberforce chapter. And we contacted our national office, and the president of our national organization, Dr. Moses Norman, decided that this was a good thing for us to do. So to make a long story short, we talked to the realtor, told her to take down the sign. We would buy the home for whatever the price was in order to save it for the legacy of Colonel Charles Young, who was our revered member. And from that point on, we raised funds to maintain the house and to restore it. We hired Moody Nolan from Columbus, who were architects that specialized in historic buildings. And we put over $300,000 into that facility to maintain it in the legacy of Colonel Young. And we're very proud of that. From that point on, we kept the home. We used it for meeting places and so on. And then later, we decided that we should give it to Central State University on a lease for $1 a year. I was asked to negotiate that, and I did with President Garland. And then later, we decided that the National Park Service, who was interested in the home, that we should negotiate with them. The fraternity made me lead negotiator. I don't know why, but anyway, that's what they did. And in Minneapolis, Minnesota, we negotiated with the National Park Service to allow them to purchase the home and make it a national landmark. My fraternity, as far as we know, is the only Greek letter organization in the United States that has done anything like this. Thank you.
Dr. Elam and the Omegas, thank you very much. And it is sci-fi, all right? Just so we know, brothers. The National Park Service is a collection of iconic parks. Charles Young will be now a piece of that iconic system. But little known, we also have iconic leaders. We have people that we look to that inspire us from our past, much as you do in your profession. And I am very honored today to introduce one of our most iconic leaders ever, Mr. Bob Stanton, to bring us home.
In all of his relations with society, both as a citizen and a soldier, his constructive influence with his people was even a potent factor along the troubled highway of enlightened progress. Allow me to repeat, in all of his relations with society, both as a citizen and soldier, his constructive influence with his people was even a potent factor along the troubled highway of enlightened progress. That was the characterization of Colonel Charles Young as set forth in the 53rd Annual Report of the Association of West Point Graduates. In all of his relation as a citizen and a soldier. What a leader, what an inspiration, for a model for all times. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you, Michael, for that very gracious introduction. As I listened to the speakers before me, I had to adjust my thinking within the moments that I have to share with you. But I want to join with all of the colleagues and those of you in the audience to recognize one among us who is by his every measure a leader. One who understands the importance of the government serving the people, who understands the importance of making the American treasures acceptable and accessible to all of the nation's people. He has led the Department of Interior with the utmost distinction as its 50th Secretary. He, in my judgment, is a manifestation of the legacy, the spirit of a Harriet Tubman, and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and Martin Luther King, and Chavez. He has exemplified what those of us who are still in the vineyard as being stewards of our nation's capital. And when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King, and when Secretary Salazar signed the permit to allow the Martin Luther King Memorial Foundation to construct it, I thought about that young leader who sought the wisdom not only here nationally, but indeed internationally. And as all of us know, there's a part of his development and understanding of leadership. He spent time in India. And I think the one with whom he spent some time in terms of his legacy is embodied in one whom I have the utmost respect and admiration, Ken Salazar, because he lives up to that adage, be the change that you want to see. Ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished leader, Ken Salazar, be the change you want to see, and you are the change. I will speak very briefly. I'm very proud to be here at one of our leading historically black universities, and as a graduate of a historically black university, and Austin, Texas. Texas is my home state. You need not stand up and applaud, but that would be appropriate by being a state. You honor us, Madam President. You honor us, and you and your students and your faculty. My brother in Omega Psi Phi fraternity, the Honorable Elam, spoke about Charles Young as a member of our beloved fraternity. He addressed a meeting of the brethren in 1919 in Boston, hosted by the third oldest chapter, Gamma chapter, with the first chapter being founded in 1911 at Howard University, the second one at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. And in his remarks, he concluded that he wanted the men of Omega to be faithful under all circumstances to his four cardinal principles. Because those four cardinal principles really are reflected in his life. And every brother who has come into the fraternity subsequent to that has understood the encouragement and the admonishment of Colonel Charles Young to live up to those four cardinal principles. Simply but potently stated, manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Colonel Charles Young. Manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. So the spirit of him lives not only here in the United States, but internationally through the membership of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. And it will be up to us in the interior, and particularly on the part of my colleagues in the National Park Service, to impart the legacy and the spirit of leadership and devotion to public service, so eloquently and so nobly exemplified by Colonel Charles Young. But I would allow you to move within my mindset just for a little while, to hopefully have some feel in terms of how I am personally and professionally proud of the leadership of Secretary Salazar and Director Jarvis and Neil McHolland and President Will Rogers of the Trust for Public Land and others who have made this day possible, and one of my leaders, Ms. Lydia Sermon, Executive Director of the African-American Experience Fund. Charles Young has been the inspiration for me in my association with the Department of Interior, spanning 51 years. I was on the campus of a small church-related historically black college when then Secretary of the Interior looked at the workforce of this department and did not see the face of America. So he directed that there would be recruitment, particularly in the places where heretofore Interior had not recruited on a substantial basis, at historically black colleges and universities. And this was before the Civil Rights Act of '64. To fast forward, I had the opportunity to serve as a seasonal ranger in Grand Teton National Park in '62 and '63, and to be able to wear the badge and the uniform in Grand Teton, and knowing that going home, I could not enter the front door of a small cafe where my mother was a short order cook. So how long have we come? And then as I progressed in my career in the Park Service, motivated by Colonel Charles Young, then a captain, as Director Jarvis mentioned, serving as the acting superintendent of Sequoia National Park in California, summer of 1903. It was my great honor and great distinction in 1970, a long time, 1970, to be appointed by the Park Service as the first African-American. No, it was not the first African-American, the first Negro superintendent, as we were described in the article in 1970. And the reason I share that with you, because while I was at Houston-Tillotson University, as a student sitting in mandatory chapel at that time, I think some of you know what I'm talking about, I listened to my favorite math teacher. And he was telling us, regardless of what we might achieve, we would hope that we would adopt what I commonly said to as something consistent in my behavior and thinking, is that I would have a sense of humility, a sense of gratitude along the way. And that professor, Dr. James Mead, also shared with us the essence of humility. In the words of Isaac Newton, at the time that he was about to be anointed by the Queen of England. And his word simply was this, that if I have seen Father, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, for all of us in conservation, if we have made any progress, it's solely because we stand on the shoulders of one of our outstanding conservationists, Captain, now Colonel Charles Young. Thank you very much.
All right, we're about there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I have a grateful heart today. I have a grateful heart to so many, and all of you in this room, for giving a gift to the nation that they don't even know yet how wonderful it will be until they open it up and visit here in Xenia. I also have a gratefulness, and as I introduce to you your first superintendent, the generation that would follow Charles Young at his home. Here's how the phone call went. You have no money. I don't know when that will come. You will have no staff. I have no idea. And there's no promotion. And here's a one-way ticket. That's what we call it in the Park Service, a one-way ticket. So I'd like to introduce your current acting superintendent for the Charles Young Buffalo Soldiers Home, Dr. Reginald Tiller.
And that's exactly how the phone call went as well. But it's a great honor. After reading a couple of books on Colonel Young, it makes you want to look back and see how your life might have paralleled his. I served in the military in the National Guard right out of college. I didn't get the GI Bill. I just wanted to see how the military lived. And so 9 years and a call up to Desert Storm, I found out how the other side lived. And so being a former soldier, that makes this story more interesting to me. And I promise you that I will protect this story, and I will grow this story, and I will ensure the entire nation knows this story. It's going to be in every elementary school, every middle school. The ROTC will see me a lot. The university will see me a lot. A lot of times I just come and knock on your door. I think I've dropped off some cards at some folks' doors without calling, but I just wanted to make sure to let you know that I'm going to be out here working for you. As we close this out today, we're going to have a bus service to go over for folks to take a look at the house. They're located right outside the back here. If the buses are full, there is an exhibit in the back that you can mill around until the buses come back. The buses will run right up until 3:45, at which time that'll be the conclusion of the tours, because there's a group that's going to be coming in after us for this facility around 4. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the house in its current state. It will change over the next few years. We have assessments to do from architectural structures, roofs, basements, and a lot of history, writing curriculums, interpretive panels that will be going up on the walls, and hiring a staff. We talked a little bit about those opportunities in the future, and we're looking forward to it. So thank you for the opportunity to be your superintendent. And that concludes.
Thank you all. That concludes the day.